Get to know Chanel Scott, the queen of relationship talk and the creator of the CheMinistry relationship platform in Atlanta and beyond. Chanel and I discuss the topic, cultivating connections during COVID-19, and she explains how we can all strengthen our relationships during the pandemic. Chanel Scott, I am so excited to talk to you today about cultivating connections during COVID-19. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Tell me about yourself and where you're from.
Well, my name is Chanel Scott, and I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia, but I am from North Carolina by way of Newark, New Jersey.
Okay. So you've lived in a couple different great spots. East Coast, South.
Born and raised in North Carolina, but I'm a product of a co-parenting situation. So my mom, she lived in New Jersey. My dad, he lived in North Carolina, and after they separated, then I was between both. So either I was in school in North Carolina throughout the school time, and in the summer times I was in New Jersey with my mom, or vice versa.
Okay. Was that like hard for you, or was it like kind of awesome to like grow up in two different like environments, cultural environments?
I think it set the foundation at an early age. There's not, a lot of times when we become adults, it's difficult for us to step out and do, something that kind of takes a level of faith. I think because I started doing this at the age of 5, it wasn't hard to move to Atlanta or move to a different city and, start new things, because it was an attachment, to one parent or the other. I was able to move around, but it was actually my choice. When I was like 2 years old, I made the decision. I asked if I could go live with my dad, and he was married. My mom was a single mom, and she allowed me to do so. And then they did well in co-parenting. Even back then, it wasn't considered. We didn't have that word co-parenting. That wasn't even, because I'm 40. I'll be 46 in May. But co-parenting wasn't even a word back then. But I had an opportunity to see what that actually looks like, and they just did that. They did what was best for their child, so it worked.
I love like how like it's so incredible, because you're into like love and relationships and cultivating them as a profession, and you kind of have that foundation so early. So it's really dynamic how you use that to help others present day.
Absolutely. I think the passion to kind of flow in the relationship realm has everything to do with my own personal experiences and relationships. Never being married, I don't have children. Had several failed relationships over the years, and I practiced celibacy for about 8 years. And then when I decided to get back out there and start dating, and let me just pause. I never intended for it to be 8 years. People say, 8 years? How did you do 8 years? It just happened. It wasn't something that I set out to do and said, well, you know what? I'm not going to date. I'm not going to engage in sexual activity for 8 years. It's just what happened. During those years, a foundation was set. My relationship with God was strengthened. I learned who I was in Him. I tapped into purpose. And so when I made the decision to step out of that, and meaning when I say step out, it doesn't necessarily mean that I was like, okay, I'm gonna be active again. It was just the idea that I'm not going to proclaim the word celibacy. Right. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to be intentional, but I want to live, because this started at the age of 33. And so it took up all of my 30s. And so I kind of felt slighted a little bit, on my 48th birthday when I was still single, and, I hadn't dated for some years and still hadn't met the right one. Because a lot of times when we as females, we make that decision, we're thinking, okay, if I just, step away from the dating scene and kind of do the work on me, then I'm going to meet my knight in shining armor. You know what I'm saying? And then that didn't happen. It was like year 7. And I was like, okay, where is he? And so after a while, I got tired of being by myself. I'm a human being, we get lonely. And so I wanted to date. And so as a result of that, I wanted to understand the male perspective, because I had failed relationships in the past, and I had made bad decisions, in relationships. So I wanted to understand the male perspective. And so hence CheMinistry, the relationship platform, that's how that was birthed. It's just wanting to understand the male perspective, being new to the dating scene, because you got to think it's almost a decade later, and dating had changed. A lot had changed from the time prior to, me dating. And so I just wanted to understand so I wouldn't make those same bad decisions.
So when did you create the platform? That's what I wanted to ask. When did you create CheMinistry?
I created CheMinistry in 2015. I moved to Atlanta in 2015. Mm-hmm. And it was something that I always wanted to do. I had lived in Nashville, Tennessee for 4 years, and my church is in Nashville, Tennessee. And we would do, like, my pastor would host relationship. It was what I consider a relationship platform, but he would just have relationship talk with all of the women on one night and all of the men on another night. And
was it like a singles thing, or just all women, all men, no matter what their relationship status was?
It didn't matter what their relationship status was, because he would touch on all aspects. And there are some things that we as single and married women could, learn, how to better engage our men, whether we're married or not. He would just deal with it all. And what I liked about him, because he's fairly young, he was fairly young. He was very transparent, even though we were in church. Very transparent, very honest, very real, nothing religious about it. And I was like, this is something that I would like to do for myself, but it was just an idea at that time. I didn't know how I was going to execute. I didn't know if I could even do it. It was just a thought of, maybe one day this is something that I could do, because those events would draw out like 2,000 to 3,000 women.
Oh, wow. So this is a big church, huh? So people from outside of the church are going to this event too?
Yes.
Okay.
You can invite your friends and stuff. And it would just, when I tell you, obviously he didn't use profanity, but he just kept it real. You know what I mean? He wasn't surface with it. He went in depth, and he kind of helped us understand, like, why we may have experienced certain issues in times past, and maybe why you responded in that way, or, it helped you kind of, do some self-reflection on, okay, maybe why didn't that situation work out? Maybe it stemmed from something that I experienced when I was a child, or, maybe some insecurity that I have now that I hadn't worked through, that I haven't even acknowledged, because, we as women, we tend to point fingers and say, well, it's his fault. And one of the things that I focus on the relationship platform is really acknowledging both perspectives, like really being able to tap into the male perspective. I have my partner, Josh Powell. He's retired from the NBA. He also plays in the Big Three now, but having his perspective represented as well as mine. And to be honest with you, if I could have all men all the time, I would. Because as a female, I just want to know the male perspective. But of course, you can't have a balanced conversation without having an equal balance of men and an equal balance of men.
So that's how your events are set up, as like a forum? So you have a panel, or is it just the audience is doing the talking?
No, actually I have a panel. So it's a 6 to 8 panel, and it's a celebrity relationship platform. We're in Atlanta, even though we travel. But I started out as a celebrity relationship platform because that was more of a marketing strategy for me, being new to Atlanta, not really knowing anybody, and wanting to gain the attention of the masses. It wasn't that, because we all have a perspective, we all have an opinion, but that's more of a marketing strategy. And so I started out just by inviting local celebrities to be on the panel, and I had a publicist, so that made that piece easier. And it just it was catchy, because in this audience engagement, you're not like listening to somebody talk about statistical data. One of the requirements, and I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm gonna bring it all together. One of the requirements is that you have to be transparent on the platform. Like, you can't, I don't want to hear about statistical data. I want to hear about experiential knowledge, and I want to hear about personal experience, and I want to hear about how you work through a particular situation that you may have gone through. And as we talk through that, like church, you got to think about what I said about church. The audience can then get on the mic, something you can't do at church, but you can get on the mic and say, I don't agree with you, or let's talk about that more, or let's hone in on this piece because I may have experienced this in my own personal situation, and I want to get your opinion or your perspective on what I could have done differently. And so as we're sitting there having the conversation, the people in the audience, even the people on the panel, they're kind of thinking through their own situations, things that they hadn't even tapped into. And they're like, so everybody wants to talk at one time. So you get the mic, you have a line down the way.
That's awesome though, to have that kind of energy in the room.
It was like, there's not an event that I've had in the 5 years that I've done CheMinistry where you have that moment where there's a moment of transparency where someone that you didn't expect to share something that they typically wouldn't share in public, and you just kind of got to put your head down. For me, I'll just put my head down or look away because it's just so crazy. Like, you're like, oh my God. But so we use those moments to heal, like they're moments of healing, because
So
they
do
get
you host the event, or do you kind of just, stay like out of it and plan it, or do you host it? Do you moderate it? Do you share your personal experience? Okay.
Yeah. So when I initially, and a lot of people don't know this, when I first started CheMinistry, I was the person behind the scenes, putting it together. My background, I have a marketing background, and I had the vision to do the platform, but I didn't feel confident enough to get on the platform and speak. Like, I didn't, feel like I had that to do, but I knew I could put it together. And so when I hired the publicist, she was like, I'm not going to do it unless you're the face of the event. I was like, that wasn't a part of my plan.
I love that she challenged you to do that.
She challenged me on there. And I think the first few I invited, at the time it was Willie Wallace. He was on that show, Atlanta Exes. And he was dating Christina Johnson, who had been married to CeeLo, but they were since divorced. And I had invited him as a guest, and he was so good. He was so good, very articulate, very intelligent, great perspective. I was like, you know what? He would be good to like host with me, because I haven't gotten this hosting thing down or the moderating thing down either. And so he came on board with me, and it's like almost like he held me down until I could find my comfort zone. And it happened so organically, because like I had the weight of the entire event on my shoulders. So you got to think, I got to make sure everything is flowing, but then I got to get up here and speak too. And so those first 30 minutes, I would just be like speechless because of the anxiety. And so he would just moderate, and I would, and then maybe about 30 minutes in, I would come out of my shell until it got to the point where it was organic, and then I could just do it from start to finish, and then eventually we parted ways, and still friends, but he's a celebrity chef now, so he got that going on.
Okay. On to the next thing, huh?
All of that, he did his thing. But he really helped me to find my comfort zone in that moment. And so then from that point on, I was doing it by myself, but I always envisioned like, I want to do this and have like the male perspective represented at all times, so that when people come, they know that they're going to get the female perspective and they're going to get the male perspective, and there's always an equal balance. And then even though we bring panelists on, I wanted to have some commonality with the person that sat up there with me. And so, oddly enough, Josh Powell, he was supposed to be on my panel in 2018, and he canceled. I didn't know him personally, but my event manager, she had booked him, and he canceled. And so that's how I knew who he was. And we met, and after we met, he invited me to what was supposed to just be an event. I didn't know what type of event it was. I was out of town at my family's for Thanksgiving, and he was like, I got an event. It was in North Carolina. I have an event in North Carolina, like that saying it was Thanksgiving week. I was like, really? And he was like, you come on out. So I go out. I don't know what I'm going to. I'm just going. And it was a relationship platform. And he was on the panel. And I was like, and he was so articulate and so intelligent and just so vulnerable and transparent, and doesn't hold back anything. He's a man, he's the type of man that when you see him, he's 6'9", tattooed from top to bottom. So when you see him, you're not thinking relationship, nothing. You're thinking this is a basketball player. You don't know what you're about to get from him. But when he opened his mouth, it's like, who's that speaking? So compassionate, so loving, shares his own personal experiences. He's not concerned about the opinions of other people. And so I was like, that's what I need on CheMinistry. Somebody who can, because we're here to help at the end of the day, help people navigate their relationships, make better decisions, pick better partners, and learn and grow. And so I brought him on. And so we began to partner and do CheMinistry. This was last year.
Okay. Look at the growth you've had in 5 years. My gosh. So how often do you do the events? Do you host them?
Right now, I do the event 4 times a year between Atlanta and Charlotte. Because I used to live in Charlotte, and I went to college in Charlotte. So Charlotte is like home for me. Charlotte, North Carolina. My sorority is in Charlotte. My old church family is in Charlotte. And so I take it there because if there was any place that I would consider home where I know the most people, it would be Charlotte. So we've been doing it between Charlotte and Atlanta, but right now we're planning in the midst of coronavirus, COVID-19, we're in the process of planning a 7-city tour.
Wow. Okay. That's
Really
fantastic. So
Right.
I see why you are the queen of relationship talk. For those cohabitating at home, what are some ways that we can cultivate our connections during this COVID pandemic?
Wow. While we are cohabitating at home, this is the time to get reacquainted with your partner. You know, with the hustle and bustle of day-to-day life, a lot of times we don't have those necessary conversations. You know, we don't take out the time because we don't feel like it, or we don't want to tap into that emotional space. But this is a time when we're at home, when we can get reacquainted. We can talk about those difficult topics. We can go for walks. We can cook. We can do creative things together to kind of recreate that bond and strengthen that bond, you know, and really take the opportunity to get to know your partner or your spouse. You know, a lot of times we don't talk like we should. A lot of times we just kind of sweep things under the rug or kind of ignore things or avoid. You know, we practice avoidance big time in relationships. But this is time to really tackle those issues because you got all the time in the world to do it. Like, you can't say, well, I'm busy, I don't have time. No,
I gotta go to work. I'm tired. You're not tired.
I'm trying to get back to the basics of really getting to know your partner, because a lot of times you hear, you know, people going through relational woes or divorces is prevalent. It's because they didn't get to know their spouse, or they didn't get to know their partner, or they chose to ignore or avoid certain things. But this is a time to really pay attention and watch and, you know, kind of get to know them all over again, you know. And we evolve, we change as people every day. You know, we're not the same as we were even a week ago. You know, different experiences change us. So this is a time to really tap into that area and get to know them, you know, so that you don't lose that connection.
I absolutely agree. Now, for the dating and platonic relationships that are not living under the same roof, who are actually adhering to social distancing, how can they cultivate their connections during this time? If you're not living together, you know, right. You're in your house, I'm quarantined in my house, what are we doing?
What we doing now? Right. Zoom, Skype, you know, long distance relationships, they do this all the time. You know, some of my friends overseas or in different countries, Josh, we did a podcast he was in Argentina and I was here. We had planned this podcast to launch together, but then he got an opportunity to go overseas. We did the podcast. He was in Argentina and I was in Atlanta. So this is a time to still get reacquainted with the people in your circle. You could do watch parties on Facebook. You know, I do a watch party every Sunday with church. My church is still in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm still a member of that church, even though I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. And I watch online anyway, but now that people are staying at home and some people, they don't have the online platform, you can host watch parties and invite people to church with you right there from Facebook. They don't have to get dressed or anything. You can do a movie. You can do a watch party on a movie or your popular reality TV show, or we can read a book together and then discuss it face to face like this. So we could get that book. You could get your book. I get mine. Read it, and we could come together. And, you know, back years, do you remember Purpose Driven Life, that book?
Yes.
Yeah, people would do that even back then before we had FaceTime. We would have our groups, read the chapter, and come back and convene on the phone and have that discussion about what we learned in that chapter. So this is the time to pick up a book and read. People don't like to read anymore, you know, so you can get acquainted that way. If you're trying to cultivate a relationship, get a relational self-help book and read each chapter together. And this will open up dialogue where you can ask those questions that you typically wouldn't think about asking. You're like, oh yeah, this will give me greater insight.
I like the idea, because when you're dating, you're kind of always thinking about the next date, you know? Right. So like you talk, but it's the next date. Like, let's do the movies this time. Let's do dinner. But, you know, kind of use these creative outlets to still continue to build those connections.
Listen to this. Going to the movie does not sustain a relationship. That's all fluff. You do understand that.
You ain't even talking for 2 hours.
Yeah, like, it's like that's the honeymoon stage where it's fun. Like, I'm trying to help people sustain relationship. We don't want to, because once we get in it, we got to be able to sustain it and make it work. We don't want these short-lived relationships where the first month was great and now, because we was just having fun, enjoying each other's company, we still don't know each other. And then when things get common, because this is what happens, this is where I created CheMinistry, the mission. It's where you meet this person, it's exciting. And we're talking, we're texting, we're dating, right? And then, when things get common, it's like, okay, what's next? And the reason you have that feel, and the next thing you know, you're like, they didn't call me. And I haven't heard from them in like several days. Like, I don't know what happened. That's because you wasn't communicating. You was having fun, but things were becoming common. You wasn't stimulating each other intellectually. It was just surface. You know what I'm saying? So you got to take the time to really, and then the thing is, if your partner doesn't want to have that type of, in-depth, getting to know, then he may not be the right person for you anyway, because that is not going to sustain the relationship at all.
Building that trust where you can be vulnerable enough to tell somebody if you're struggling in some areas. So I can see that for sure.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so let me ask you this. For singles out there still ready for a relationship, let's talk about how you would encourage them to not let this halt any valuable connections to love. Like you just gave a prime suggestions to get a relationship book. But you mean, are we shooting shots in DMs? Like what do you do if you're ready for a relationship? You might have been ready when COVID hit, but here you are. Here you are like, oh, well, so much for that. So much for shooting my shot with that lady I like at work,
If you've created a level of communication to the extent that you can shoot a DM or, send a text, then by all means, this is the time. This is the time to cultivate where you don't get blindsided by the dating and the fun stuff that comes along with dating. Because again, like I said, it's not sustainable. So yes, if you have someone that you were thinking about getting to know, yes, continue to communicate with that person, and you have time. It's not an issue of, oh, I was working, I didn't have time to call you.
Right.
So you have that aspect of it, but then also, and I'm not a advocate of this, but this is something that I've seen work for other people: online dating. I personally don't like the online dating.
Why not?
The person that you see on the picture is not the person that you meet in person. Okay?
So you old school. You like to meet people where they are, get to know you from the beginning. I don't need you fronting. I don't need your representative.
That too, but I don't know if you've ever tried online dating, but I gave it a shot for like a week.
A week? What turned you off so quickly?
I've met like 5 people in a week. And I actually met these people, met up with them face to face. One person, we went and got ice cream. Another person invited me out to like a bar/restaurant at a hotel where there were tons of people. And we ate and we sat at the bar and I had breakfast. It was in the evening, but I had breakfast. Another person, I did invite him to the rooftop to where I live, where there was a pool and a bunch of my neighbors just kind of sitting around, and I got acquainted. But it's like in the picture, it's one person, but then you start seeing everything else about that person when you get them in person and start unpeeling the layers back. And you're like, okay, whatever this imaginative thing I had in my head, it doesn't exist, because this person is not that, as opposed to when you meet people. And then this is another thing I wanted to bring up about online dating. There are some people online dating that you would swipe through their picture and be like, I would not date them. But if you met them in person and you had a conversation, you would be like, they will become attractive. Like we have a lot in common, and then they will start to appeal more to you, as opposed to you just picking them from a picture and like, no, I'm not attracted to them, and that's only surface. So that's it takes away from the authenticity of really developing real relationship. So I met someone online, just to give you an example, and the guy, he had a very attractive picture, very, very attractive. Now I'm transparent on my platform, and I don't mind this, so I'm gonna give it to you. And we met up, and this guy, on the first meeting, we never gone on a date. This was just, we met up in a loungy type space and was talking, and he was very open. He talked about how his mom was on drugs when he was a baby, and how he's had to work and how he's had to do this. But he, in the course of this conversation, he asked me, is there a liquor store in the area? And yeah, he wanted to smoke like a Black and Mild. And I'm looking like, this, I don't do none of this. This ain't even who I am as a person. You know what I'm saying? But if you
like that, he asked you, it's hilarious.
Yeah, dude, it was not this. If I had met this guy in person, we would never even come in contact. but his picture was nice. So this is why I'm not an advocate of online dating, because
then when you meet in person, I can instantly have a conversation with you and already kind of feel through some of that stuff.
Absolutely. And it was not something that I would ever do. So.
Okay, my next question. This may be a uniformly stressful time for people with so many factors being compromised, right? Home life, finances, job security, business, etc. How can we keep all that stress from bleeding into any of our relationships, whether they're intimate, familial, or platonic? How can we keep
communication?
Mm-hmm.
Communication. We don't do it enough. We text, right? We text. We don't talk on the phone. Pick up the phone and call your people.
Mm-hmm.
Check in on them. Make sure they're okay. If it's family, if it's a relationship, you need to have a support system, somebody who you can vent to and express yourself and not have to hold back and not have to be fearful that, you're going to be judged if you have something going on. But communication is at the foundation of all levels of relationship, period. Sometimes you just need that space to talk, because sometimes your circle can't help, but just being able to have that outlet to be able to speak freely, can release some level of burden off of you. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to internalizing it, and then now you'll walk a time bomb because you want to explode on everybody. So communication is key. Absolutely.
Further distance you from everybody. So now you're by yourself.
Right. You know how we do. We isolate ourselves. We don't want to talk. I'm guilty of it. You just want to be by yourself. You're like, listen, I don't want to talk. I don't want to this. But if you have somebody that you respect, somebody you can say, hey, listen, because you know that they got you. Not just somebody who nosy, but somebody who truly.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? Somebody who truly got your back, who can support you when you need it. So just always make sure you have those type of people in your corner anyway.
Okay. Now, self-care is a buzzword these days. You know that. Self-care, self-care, self-care. In what ways do you encourage that type of care with others? Like, we're big on manis, massages, all that, but how can you encourage people to have that type of care with other people?
I would say quarantine. We was talking about this last night. Self-care. I would say you have to nurture the mind, the body, and the soul. Obviously, with the mind, you always want to, read, update yourself on the latest self-help books. They have some valuable advice. You know what I'm saying? Some of those things are valuable, but everybody has a different perspective. But always make sure you are exercising your mind. I would say body exercise. Of course, I'm walking, like here lately, I've been walking since we can't go out and do anything. When I come home from work, me and my family, we walk around the block, we talk. That's an opportunity to talk and kind of get some things out. But exercise, maybe do yoga in the living room, do some group activities where you can engage each other, have some friendly competition. Spirit, soul, you got to have an authentic relationship with Jesus Christ. Like, you're not going to make, none of that other stuff is gonna matter if you don't have that. So meditation, everybody has their own way of nurturing their relationship with God, but definitely make sure you are doing something in that area, so those are the ways that I would kind of encourage self-care.
I think you are absolutely amazing. I'm the queen of relationship talk for a reason. I wish you continued success in all your business endeavors and everything else that you create during this COVID-19 pandemic. I know you're going to come up with some many more amazing things. So I just wish you continued success. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to sit down and talk to me today.
Thank you for having me.
How do we stay in contact with you and keep up with your events?
You can stay in contact with me through social media on Twitter. You can get me at Chanel and Scott on Facebook and Instagram. You can get me at Chanel Nicole Scott, my whole name.
Whole name. Government.
Whole government name. And you can find out about the events through Instagram, CheMinistry Live. Facebook is CheMinistry Live, and then on Twitter it's just CheMinistry. My website is actually being redesigned. You can go there. There's some stuff there, but it's in maintenance mode is when I looked at it last night, because my web developer is doing his thing right now. But it's CheMinistry.com. You can get all the information on the next events. We'll have a date. As soon as we know when we're coming out of this quarantine lockdown, we'll have it.
You're ready.
I mean, we had already had everything set up, because I had an original date that we had to, change. And so everything is laid out. We're just using this time to kind of maximize on what we were going to do. So as soon as we know when this is all over, we'll have your new date.
Thank you. Well, you stay happy, healthy, and productive during this time, and I will chat with you soon.
Thank you so much. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.